Okay, today we'll do the supply curve. Yesterday we are doing the demand curve. So as I said yesterday, the demand curve will be downward sloping curve like this, DD. So can anyone tell me why this curve will be a downward sloping curve? Yes.
सर जब प्राइस बढ़ता है तो डिमांड घटता है.
हाँ वो तो है, पर क्यों घटता है?
Sir, there was an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded.
Why this will happen?
Because sir, the income matters. If the income doesn't rise, the demand will automatically.
No, this will be because of diminishing marginal utility. Because say if I offer you say free cold drinks, so for the first unit of the cold drinks you will get the maximum satisfaction. For the second unit of the cold drinks you will get lesser amount of satisfaction. For the third bottle of cold drinks you will get even less amount of satisfaction or utility. So when we'll talk about the consumer's behavior or utility theory, then we'll see that as the amount of quantity demanded increases or amount of consumption of a commodity increases, then the marginal utility of that commodity will keep on decreasing. That is why you are paying according to the marginal utility of the commodity. So for the first unit of cold drinks, you will be ready to pay this much amount of price. So this will be your willingness to pay, how much you are actually want to pay. But for the second unit, you will pay a lesser amount. For the third unit, you want to pay even lesser amount. So that is why a typical demand curve is a downward sloping curve like this. So the distance, the vertical distance, this distance is called willingness to pay of a consumer for a particular quantity of demand. Now, today we'll talk about supply. So it will be the same thing. So just like demand curve, supply curve will be a curve like this, but it will be upward sloping curve. Fine. So instead of downward sloping curve like this, a supply curve will be upward sloping curve. That means there will be a positive relationship between price and quantity. That means if price of a commodity increases, the sellers will be wanting to sell more amount of the commodity. So the supply curve will be upward sloping curve like this. As in case of the demand curve, the supply curve, say for this unit of supply, say this is 2 unit. So this is the price. So this vertical distance will be the minimum price for which this distance is the minimum price that unless the producer or the seller receives this amount of price, he or she will not sell the amount. Similarly, for the third unit of output, the seller should receive this much price. For the fourth unit, sellers should receive this much price. Without receiving this much price, they will not sell their commodity. So these vertical distances are called minimum willingness to accept the price the sellers will be accepting, this will be the minimum price. They can be happy, they may be happy to receive a higher price, but unless they receive this much price, this is the minimum price, without receiving this, they will not sell their commodities. So that is why a supply curve will be upward sloping curve, and as the number of output increases or amount of the output increases, the price or the minimum price the sellers want to accept will be higher and higher. So a typical supply curve will be upward sloping like this. Next is law of supply. Can anyone tell me what is this law of supply? Yes.
So keeping other factor constant when the price of a commodity increases, its quantity supplied increases and vice versa.
Yes. So keep as in the law of demand. So in case of the law of supply, if the other things remaining unchanged, as price of the commodity increases, the supply of that commodity will be increasing higher and higher. So there is a positive relationship between price and quantity of any commodity or a service, given the other factors are unchanged. So there is a direct relation between price and quantity exists. Next is supply function. How the supply function, what is the supply function?
স্যার
So if
বলবো
we
সাপ্লাই ফাংশনটা।
bolo.
সাপ্লাই ফাংশন হচ্ছে ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল ডিসক্রিপশন of the connection between the quantity required of a service or product, its value and other associated factors such as input cost and related goods prices.
Yes. So quantity supply is function of the price of the commodity and the other factors. The other factors means price of complementary goods, price of substitute goods. There may be other factors like technology, expectation, weather, price of intermediate goods, PI, and so on. So there can be other factors also. So these are the factors, possible factors, which can affect the supply of any commodity. So typically these are the supply functions. So generally we in this two-dimensional space, we take only QS, quantity supply of the commodity, and the price of that particular commodity. So if price of the commodity changes, quantity supply of that commodity will also change if these other factors remaining unchanged. So say if price is initially at P0, P0 may be 10 rupees or 5 rupees, whatever it may be. So at P0 price, the amount of supply is this much. Say you are at point A, and at this point, say you are demanding say 10 units of the commodity. Now for lower price P1, say quantity demand is somewhere here. Say this is 8. Say you are at point B. So for a change in price of this commodity itself, the consumer or the demander or the supplier is moving from point A to point B along the supply curve. So this is called movement along the supply curve or change in quantity supplied. Clear? So in this case, these other factors are remaining unchanged. Only thing is changing the price of the commodity. ঠিক আছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার ঠিক আছে।
Now, as in case of the demand curve, we can also think of the change in supply when any one of these other factors are changing. So we will see how the supply curve changes or how the supply curve shifts if any one of these factors change. Let's see one by one. So first of all, we will change the price of complementary goods. So what are complementary goods? Yes, anyone? Hello?
হ্যাঁ স্যার বলছি।
tea and coffee.
Sir, repeat question.
I'm asking you that
স্যার
give me
কমপ্লিমেন্টারি গুডস হচ্ছে এমন একটা গুড যেগুলো মানে whose appeal increases with the popularity of its complement.
Complementary goods are the jointly demanded.
yes, but we are talking about from the supply side. So let us assume a complementary goods are say car and diesel. Okay, so the two goods are used simultaneously.
Yes, sir.
So
Tea and
without
sugar.
having this diesel, you cannot use your car. So now we want to see what will be the supply curve of car, how the supply curve of cars will be affected if the price of diesel goes up. Say initially this is the supply curve of cars. Say this is SC. C stands for car, not complementary here. Okay. Now at any given price, P0 price of car, your supply is this much. So this is called Q0. So this amount of cars will be supplied if the price of the car is P0. Fine. Now say price of diesel goes up. Then what will happen? Demand for diesel will fall. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now diesel will be used only for car. So when the demand for diesel is decreasing, then the demand for cars
Will also decrease.
will also decrease. So those who are sellers in the market, they can see that for a rise in price of diesel, the demand for cars will fall. So in the long term or after few months, the sellers of cars will reduce their production of cars. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
if initially the demand, if initially the supply of car is this much, this distance, or OQ0 amount, this distance, now for a price hike in diesel, the new supply of cars will be somewhere here. for this price. So this is Q1 amount. So this point will be a point on the new supply curve. Now, similarly, you can take another price, P1, and initially this is the amount of supply. So for a price hike of diesel, say this is the new point on the supply curve, or new supply at price P1. Now, if we join these 2 points, you can see that the supply curve, the new supply curve of cars are shifting towards left. Fine? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So the entire demand, entire supply curve is shifting parallelly to the left. Okay. Now what will happen, say if a price of substitute goods increases. Give me an example of substitute goods.
Tea and coffee.
Tea and coffee, sir.
Tea and coffee. Okay.
Best example.
Now again, we will consider this from the supply side. Say we are seeing that supply of tea. So this is initial supply curve of tea. So this is quantity of tea, and this is price of tea. So if we do not consider the price of coffee or change in price of coffee, then this will be our supply curve of tea. Now take any initial price of tea, P0. So at this price, this much will be supplied. This much amount of tea will be supplied and produced. So the amount of supply will be somewhere here. Call it Q0. Now, say price of coffee increases. What will happen?
Demand of tea will decrease.
The demand of
First,
tea is increase.
what will happen to demand of
The
coffee?
demand of tea will
Oh no,
increase.
sir, increase. It will increase.
Just go step by step. If price of coffee increases, then the demand of coffee will decrease, as coffee is a normal good. Okay.
Sir.
So as coffee and tea are two substitute commodities, when the demand of coffee is decreasing, then the demand for tea will what happen?
Increase.
Increase.
Increases.
Yes.
So now the suppliers of coffee are watching this thing, this mechanism. So as price of coffee increases, demand for tea will go up and demand for coffee will fall. So as a result, in the long term, the suppliers can see that the demand for tea is increasing. So they will reduce their coffee production. So tea production will go up. So production of tea will go up. So if at this price, P0 price, if initially they are producing this much amount of tea, now they will produce somewhere higher amount of tea. Okay. Similarly, if you take any other price, this initial price, this is the initial demand, and the new demand will be new supply will be somewhere here. So if you join these two, you will get the new supply curve. So here, supply curve will shift to the right side parallelly. So this will be supply curve of T, change in supply curve of T due to rise in price of coffee. But one thing you must remember that this shifts in demand curve in the previous class, those shifts were instantaneous. But here, the change in supply will take place, will take some time, because you cannot increase the production of tea overnight. For that, you have to plant a tea garden, and after say 4 or 5 years, you can expect to have higher production of tea. So it will take some time. So this kind of adjustment is not instantaneous, as we can see for demand or change in demand. But for this change in supply, it will take some time. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Next is technology. So tell me, what will happen if technology becomes better, or improved version of technology arrives in the market? How the supply curve will take change? So this is initial supply curve of any commodity. Then what will happen? So this is the supply curve of tea itself. Then now say I'm saying that technology of production improves. Then how this supply curve will change? Yes, anyone?
Sir, the demand of the new product will automatically increase.
Here we are talking about supply curve, not the demand curve.
Supply will increase.
Why?
Sir, if the technology will improve, then it will be easy to produce such goods, and also this will help to supply more products.
Okay, anyone else wants to say something else?
Yes, sir.
What?
So if the cost of the production goes down, then the consumer will like demand more of the product at lower prices.
Yes. So you can think of two different ways. Say start with a given initial price P0 for the tea. So before improvement of technology, the producer is producing this much. Say this is Q0 amount of tea. Now with improved technology, at the same price, at the given price, they can produce even higher amount. Say this amount, call it Q1. Okay. So with a different price P1, say initially they are producing this much. Now with improved technology, they can produce a higher amount. So if you join these two, you can see that there is a rightward movement, a rightward shift of the supply curve. So due to improvement in technology of production, the supply curve will be shifting to the right like this. Similarly, you can think differently. Say you start with a given quantity of output, say Q0 amount of production. So before improvement in technology, for Q0 to produce Q0 amount of output, the farm or the seller needs at least this much price. This is the minimum price. Otherwise, minimum willingness to accept. So if the farm does not receive this much price, they will not produce. Now, due to improvement in technology, the cost of production will obviously reduce. So now, say the cost of production be somewhere here, little. So now the minimum willingness to accept is this much. So now the farm is ready to produce this much Q0 output at if they get this much price. Earlier, they need at least this much price should have been needed. So you are getting this point. Similarly, for this output, earlier you should have get this much price. Now you need only this much price. So the new supply curve will be a supply curve that is shifted rightward. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Next is price of raw material. So what will happen if price of raw materials increases? Yes, anyone?
So the demand will decrease.
The supply curve will decrease, sir.
We're not talking about decrease or increase. It will shift. It will not decrease or increase. So I'm saying in which direction it will.
Left side.
Sir, left.
Left
And
side
what
is
is your
Yes,
explanation?
sir.
What is your explanation for this?
Sir, if the price of the raw material increases, the supply will decrease, and the demand for that particular product will also decrease.
Focus on only the supply curve. So demand is something different and the supply curve is something different. Supply curve is for the sellers who produce and sell the commodities, goods and services in the market.
So
For
the
them,
production will decrease.
okay, and the demand curves are from the consumers who consumes or eat the goods and services or consume the goods and services. Like say this commodity, say I'm taking this commodity as samosa. So there are few vendors or few shops who sells samosas. So for them, for the sellers of samosas, we will get the supply curve of samosa. And those like us who eat the samosas, for those we will get the demand curve of samosas. Now I am saying the raw materials of samosas are increasing or increases. Then what will happen to the supply curve of samosa? Is the question is clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Now what will your answer and what will be the explanation for your answer? What are the raw materials of samosa? সিঙ্গাড়া বানাতে কি কি লাগে
Sir,
ingredients?
potatoes,
Potato.
Potatoes.
vegetables.
So I'm taking only two things, potato and say oil. Okay. So both price of potato and oil are increasing. Say both the price of potato and price of oil increases, then what will happen to the supply curve?
The price of potato will increase, sir.
Yes, that's given.
So the price of samosa will also increase.
The price samosa also increase.
We still haven't talked about the price. What will be the market price? What you are talking about, the market price of samosa will increase. But we haven't said that this P1 or this P0 will be the market price. Only thing we are talking about that if this is the price, then this much will be the supply. So market price will be determined from the interaction of the market supply curve and the market demand curve. So till now, I haven't talked about the market supply curve and neither the market price of samosa. So what will happen to the supply curve of samosa for any individual seller if the price of oil and price of potatoes increases? That is my question. Very simple question. সে তোমার পাড়ার যে সিঙ্গাড়ার দোকান আছে সেখানে যদি আলু এবং তেলের দাম বাড়ে তাহলে তার যে সাপ্লাই কার্ভটা হবে সেই সাপ্লাই কার্ভটা কেমন ভাবে চেঞ্জ করবে? দ্যাটস দ্য কোশ্চেন। Got it?
স্যার রাইটের দিকে সরে যাবে সাপ্লাই কার্ভটা।
Your explanation, I don't know which side you have to explain it. You must have some
when the price will increase, the curve will shift to right, and when the price is gonna decrease, the curve is gonna shift to the left.
Just think about increase, then we will talk about decrease later. So yes, what is your explanation or logic behind shifting?
Because the price of raw material is increasing them and the production cost is also increasing. So the supply curve will shift right.
Then the supply curve will shift right. Do you have a pen and paper with you?
Yes, sir.
So just use the logic of previous case and try to draw this diagram. So whenever price of raw materials or in intermediate commodities, we call it PI, or price of intermediate goods are increasing. That means price of potato and price of oil is increasing. So the cost of production will go up. So production cost will go up. Say earlier to produce before increase in price of in raw materials or in intermediate goods. So to produce Q0 amount of output, the seller needed this much. This is the minimum price that the seller must get. Otherwise, they will not sell their samosas. Now, with a rise in price of raw materials, their cost of production increases. So this minimum willingness to accept or this minimum price that the sellers receive to produce Q0 amount of output must be somewhere here, higher amount, this distance. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this
Yes,
point
sir.
will be a point on the new supply curve. Now take any other amount, Q1 amount of output. So before increase in price of raw materials, the producer needed this much price, minimum price. Otherwise, they would not have sell this much amount, this amount of samosa. Now they needed, say, at least this price higher than this price. So now to produce Q1 amount of output, they need this distance, this much price, this vertical distance. So now if you join these 2 points, so this will be our new supply curve. So in which direction the supply curve shifts?
Leftward.
Leftward.
Leftward. Is the logic clear and understandable?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, if the cost of raw materials decreases, then the supply curve will be shifting to the right parallelly. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just think logically, things will be very clear. What is the next thing? আর কি কি factor ছিল? What are the other factors? I've talked about complementary substitute technology, raw materials, and then
এর
expectation
মানে
and
মানে
weather.
ব্যালেন্স হতে পারে,
কি?
মার্কেটে ইমব্যালেন্স হতে পারে, তাই জন্য মানে
I haven't talked about market imbalance. Market অবধি আমি এখনো পৌঁছইনি। ঠিক আছে? Now say if weather changes, then what will happen to the supply curve? So this is our initial supply curve, S0, S0. So this is a supply curve of rice. Okay. So rice production needs good rainfall. So now we are assuming that in this year there are favorable rainfall for rice production happened in this year. Then what will happen to the production or to the supply curve of rice in this year? Yes, anyone?
Sir, please repeat question.
Sir.
I'm saying that if the weather is favorable to the production of rice in this year, that means there happened very good monsoon in this year, very good rainfall in this year, then what will happen to the supply curve of rice in this year?
Sir, it will shift to the right side.
Lightward shifting.
How or why?
Sir, because if the production will goes fine, then there will be a good amount of supply they will do in the market.
So for that you need you can take any given price P0 of rice. So without any favorable monsoon, the production of rice would have been this much, say Q0 amount, say this amount, Q0. Now due to a heavy, not heavy, rather favorable monsoon, you can expect the rice production at this price. If the market price of rice is P0, then at this price, the production of rice would have been somewhere higher, this amount. So this distance, say call it Q1. Okay. So this will be a point on our new supply curve of rice. Similarly, you can take some other price, P1 price. I'm not saying that this P0 or this P1 will be the market price of rice. Okay. Remember that the market price will come later. I'm coming to that. So if this P1 is the price of rice, then without any favorable monsoon, this much is the production of rice. Now, along with a favorable monsoon, the producer can produce a higher amount of rice. So this will be a new point, point on the new supply curve. So if you join these 2 points, you will get the new supply curve of rice, S1, where this supply curve is basically shifting parallelly to the right. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is how you can you have seen that how the supply curve can shift entirely, or when there is a change in parameters like price of substitute goods, price of complementary goods, or there is change in weather or change in price of raw materials, etc. And when the price of the commodity itself changes, keeping the other factors or other parameters unchanged, then there is a movement along the supply curve takes place. Now, as before, as we have seen the market demand curve, how we arrived at market demand curve? By anyone? Can anyone say how we can draw the market demand curve?
Sir, can you repeat the question?
Why don't you listen it carefully? Whenever I ask something, I have to repeat it again and again. I'm saying that how we can arrive at the market supply curve, the market demand curve. We have done it yesterday. So there are, if there are two demanders, then how we can arrive at the market demand curve if in this market there are two people only, two consumers. No one.
By joining it together?
किसको कहाँ ज्वाइन करना है?
पहला डिमांड कर्व को और दूसरा डिमांड कर्व को ज्वाइन करके मार्केट कर्व होगा.
कैसे ज्वाइन करोगे? There is called something called horizontal summation. যারা দেখুনি আগে দিনের ক্লাস ইউটিউবে আছে দেখে নিতে পারো. This is called horizontal summation. একই রকম ভাবে supply curve এর ক্ষেত্রে if we assume that there are only two sellers in the market, so if we add the individual supply curves of seller 1 and seller 2, we can have the market supply curve. Say this is supply curve of seller A, and say this is supply curve of seller B. This is S. Now we want to derive the market supply curve. So for that, if you take any given price P0, this is P0. So at P0 price, this is the amount seller wants can produce, and at the same price, this is the amount seller B can produce, this distance. So call it Q1, Q0B, QB0, and call this QB, QA. This is production of seller A corresponding to the initial price P0. So we call it Q0A. Now at this same P0 price, if you add this Q0A and Q0B, so this is the distance. This distance is equal to, so this is Q0, where Q0 is equal to Q0A plus Q0B. Similarly, you can take any other price, P1. So at this price, this distance is the sale or production of seller A. So you call it QA1. At the same P1 price, say this is QB1. So at this P1 price, if you add this Q1A plus Q1B, say this is Q1, where Q1 is equal to Q1A plus Q1B. So we are getting these 2 points. So if we just join these 2 points, we are getting the supply curve or the market supply curve for 2 sellers. Now, if we have more than 2 sellers, in the same manner, you can add the number of sellers or the number of sales of the sellers, and you will get this market supply curve of any particular commodity. Fine? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm talking about the market equilibrium and what will be the market price. Now we have got the market demand curve. We have done it yesterday. So this is the market demand curve, DD, for any commodity, and this is the market supply curve, SS. Okay. And this is the point where these 2 curves intersect each other. Now we are calling this price corresponding to this point. Say call this point E, and corresponding to the point E, the price is say P star, and corresponding to the point E, the price output is say Q star. Fine. So this is the demand curve and this is the supply curve. Now at the point of intersection, we call this point equilibrium point. And corresponding to this equilibrium point, the price we are getting, P star price, is called the equilibrium price. And this Q star amount of output is the equilibrium amount of output will be produced and sold in the market at P star price. If this is the demand curve of any commodity, say this is the demand curve of samosa and this is the supply curve of samosa in say the market of Kolkata, then if we know this demand curve and the supply curve, market demand curve and the market supply curve, we can calculate the equilibrium price of samosa in Kolkata and the equilibrium amount of output or sale of samosa in the market of Kolkata. Is this clear till now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. Clear.
Now, if price does not prevail at P star, so it's not necessary that the initial price will be at P star. Price can be somewhere here or it can be somewhere here. কেউ মাথার দিব্যি দিয়ে রাখেনি যে মার্কেটে এই প্রাইসটাই প্রিভেল করবে, তাই তো? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now think of a different price. If we assume that the price is not at the equilibrium price P star, price is somewhere here at P0. Okay. Now what will happen? If price of samosas is at P0 price, which is higher than P star, higher than the equilibrium price, what is happening? How much is demand? Demand is this much distance. What you can get from the demand curve. So if this is your demand curve and the amount of demand at P0 price is this distance, fine. And what is the amount of supply at this P0 price? This distance from the supply curve. That means you have something this distance is extra amount of supply of samosa if the price is higher than the market price, higher than P star price. Fine. Yes or
Yes.
no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So it's something like that. Say at P0 price, say demand is say 100 unit, 100টা সিঙ্গারার চাহিদা আছে, বাট সাপ্লাই হয়ে গেছে, মার্কেটে সাপ্লাই হয়ে গেছে সে 500টা সামোসার সাপ্লাই এসছে। So there is this amount of excess supply will be prevailing in the market. Fine. If price is above P star. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Now
sir.
what will happen if there is excess supply in the market? Excess supply হয়ে গেলে কি হবে? Yes.
দাম কমে যায়।
দাম বাড়বে স্যার।
দাম বাড়বে, কেন বাড়বে?
No, sir, the price will decrease.
Say there is demand is 100, demand is 100 and supply is say 500. ধরা যাক আজকে কলকাতার মার্কেটে সামোসার ডিমান্ড আছে 100টা, আজকে কলকাতার মার্কেটে সামোসা তৈরি হয়ে গেছে 500টা। তাহলে কি হবে, যে এক্সেস সবাই এই যে 100টা ডিমান্ড, 100টা সামোসার ডিমান্ড পূরণ হয়ে যাওয়ার পরে বাকি যে 400টা সামোসা পড়ে থাকবে সেগুলো কি হবে, আইদার সেই সামোসাগুলোকে ফেলে দিতে হবে গঙ্গায়, আর না হলে সেই সামোসাগুলো কি করতে পারে সেলাররা, যে সেলাররা বললো ঠিক আছে আজকে যে P0 প্রাইস আছে এই P0 প্রাইসে আমরা নিচ্ছি না, আমরা সামোসার প্রাইসটা একটু কম করাচ্ছি। সে আজকে P0 প্রাইসটা ধরা যাক 10 টাকা ছিল, এখন তারা বলছে যে 10 টাকা দিতে হবে না, তোমাদের আমি 8 টাকায় দিয়ে দিচ্ছি, নিয়ে যাও সমস্যা, তাই তো? তাহলে দামটা আস্তে আস্তে কমতে থাকবে। দামটা যদি এখানে থাকে তাহলে এক্সেস সাপ্লাই কি হবে, অ্যামাউন্ট অফ এক্সেস সাপ্লাইটা কমে গেছে কিন্তু এখনো এক্সেস সাপ্লাই আছে, তাহলে এভাবে আরো দাম কমবে। তো দামটা কমতে কমতে যখন P স্টারে এসে হাজির হবে তখনই there will be no excess supply. ঠিক আছে?
ঠিক আছে স্যার।
ওকে স্যার।
সুতরাং যদি ইকুইলিব্রিয়াম প্রাইসের চেয়ে বেশি প্রাইস মার্কেটে প্রিভেল করে তাহলে অটোমেটিক্যালি মার্কেট মেকানিজম দিয়ে ডিমান্ড সাপ্লাই এর কম বেশি থাকার দরুন অটোমেটিক্যালি দ্য প্রাইস উইল কাম ব্যাক টু দ্য ইকুইলিব্রিয়াম প্রাইস P star. Similarly, if we start with another different price, say P1, which is less than P star amount of equilibrium price. So what is happening at P star P1 price? What is your supply? This much, this distance, what you are getting from the supply curve. If price is P1, so amount of supply of samosa is this much, this distance. Whereas the demand for samosa is this distance from the demand curve. Clear? So there will be an excess demand of this amount if the price is at P1, which is less than the equilibrium market price. So now what is happening? There is excess demand prevailing in the market. Now এখানে just উল্টোটা হয়েছে, এখানে ধরা যাক ডিমান্ড হয়ে গেছে 500টা, ডিমান্ড হয়ে গেছে 500টা, সাপ্লাই হয়ে গেছে 100টা। তাহলে কি হচ্ছে, চাহিদা, ধরা যাক আজকে তোমরা সবাই কলেজে গেছো, কলেজে যে ক্যান্টিন আছে ক্যান্টিনে ধরো ক্যান্টিনে আজকে 100টা সামোসা তৈরি হয়েছে, বাট আজকে 500 জন স্টুডেন্ট গিয়ে হাজির হয়েছে কলেজে, তাহলে এক একজন যদি একটা সামোসাও খায় তাহলে 100টা সামোসা তো শেষ হয়ে গেল, তো বাকি 400 জন কি খাবে? কিছুই খেতে পারবে না। তো ক্যান্টিনওয়ালা যদি এটা এভাবে করে, যে ক্যান্টিনওয়ালা দেখছে যে আজকে 100টা সামোসা তৈরি করেছি কিন্তু আজকে 500 জন খদ্দের চলে এসছে, তাহলে আজকে ক্যান্টিনে যদি ধরা যাক এখানে হি স্টার্টিং উইথ সে 2 টাকা সামোসা ছিল দাম, তো ক্যান্টিনের ওয়ালা সেজ দ্যাট নাও আই এম স্টার্টিং আপ বিডিং ফর সামোসা, সে দোজ হু বিড হাইয়েস্ট দে উইল গেট দেয়ার সামোসা ফার্স্ট। That means the price of samosa will start to rise in this direction. So as the price of samosa increases, the amount of excess demand will keep on falling. This distance, horizontal distance, is less than this distance. So এইভাবে প্রাইসটা যত পিস্টারের দিকে বাড়বে আস্তে আস্তে এক্সেস ডিমান্ডের অ্যামাউন্টটা কমতে থাকবে। সো অ্যাট পিস্টার, যখনই পিস্টার প্রাইসে চলে আসবো সেখানে excess demandটা zero হয়ে যাবে, so there will be no excess demand. So if the price deviates from, due to any reason, deviates from the equilibrium price P star, the market mechanism itself brings the price back to P star. So এটাকেই আমরা বলি invisible hand of the market. So মার্কেটটা আবার নিজেকে P star প্রাইসে or equilibrium price ফেরত নিয়ে যাবে। That is why we call this equilibrium point E a stable equilibrium. Stable equilibrium. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'll stop here.